Welcome to the channel, My Kids You're Teaching. We created this channel and this website in order to support parents, inform parents about what's going on in our schools and with our children in general. It helped this channel greatly if you would go down and hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified when there's new videos. It is our intention to put these things out to inform parents of news stories and things that are happening in your school system with your specific school or your school boards all across the United States. And we're even going to bring you some stories that are from around the world so that you can see exactly how far this reaches. NAMBLA made the world stage when a news crew from KRON TV in San Francisco mentioned them for the first time on the evening news and showed footage from a hidden camera taken to a meeting. Now, meetings were held by NAMBLA every month for 2 years at the San Francisco Public Library, a very short walk from a middle school, and in the same building where children were attending story hours, reading books, and going through the children's section. Parents were upset and angry after this. They were demanding the removal of this group from the library. When they were protesting and the police showed up, and the parents were even incensed even more to find out that about a dozen of the NAMBLA members were arrested on molestation charges during those 2 years. A short walk from the middle school and in the same building where kids were coming to check out books. The police said that while the members of NAMBLA were committing crimes, the organization had done nothing wrong. Writing and reading poetry and stories about man-boy love, sharing artwork that was created by these people and by the members of the meeting, none of this was illegal because it wasn't photos or videos. So a photo or a video is of real life. It depicts something that has happened. You could draw pictures. That is fantasy. So it's not illegal. These were works of fiction and protected by free speech, is what the police captain said. After the protests and the pressure put on by the library, meeting policies were changed to protect the library and the city of San Francisco from the actions of groups like NAMBLA, because parents would sue if their child was harmed because they were allowed to have a safe haven inside of a public library. NAMBLA stated after this that we are the only group that is advocating for the rights of children to have control over their lives. Really? During this time through the 1970s and 80s and early 90s, groups like NAMBLA and the Radical Fairies were becoming more organized and more public. This led to public outcry to remove these groups, and when gay activist groups found their affiliations with members of NAMBLA or the organization itself, those ties were severed immediately. In 1993, NAMBLA had United Nations consultative status. This status is created for NGOs, which is a non-governmental organization with expert knowledge to consult with the UN on global policies. So NAMBLA had United Nations consultative status to consult as an expert with the UN on global policies. So NAMBLA had this status because the International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Trans, and Intersex Association, which they list as the IGLA, got this status, and NAMBLA was a member of the IGLA and caused the IGLA to be suspended. Many gay and lesbian organizations called for the ties with NAMBLA to be cut. Many didn't know fully what those organizations were and that they were even affiliated. Like I said, there was no internet. So mostly because of the advocacy that Harry Hay and David Thorstad had, they thought this was a legitimate organization that was an LGBT rights organization, and they were aghast to find out that this was about pedophilia. Across the U.S., LGBT groups suspended association with any and all members of NAMBLA and the organization itself, causing people to still attend meetings but just not be on the rolls of NAMBLA. Senator Jesse Helms, Republican from North Carolina, proposed a bill to block any UN funding until President Clinton could certify that no UN agency grants any official status to any group that condones pedastry and pedophilia. The bill was unanimously passed by Congress. Unanimously by Democrats and Republicans. And it was signed into law by President Clinton. And it stands to this day that no federal fund will support any organization that supports pedastry or pedophilia. Amazing that everyone in Congress agreed and voted unanimously, both sides of the aisle, to protect our children. Gay families and parents were concerned for the safety of their own children. While conservatives were standing against NAMBLA, so were the Democrats. So were the LGBT groups. All of these people who were supposed to be on different sides of things, you would have religious organizations and LGBT organizations both coming together to protect their children. Because we all agreed that children should not be sexualized and should be protected and allowed to grow up as children. Now let's fast forward to 2022. We've explored from 1912 to 1996 when this all blew up. Searching for origins of gender fluid sexual identity, sexual activity, searching for the advocacy of children's autonomy for their freedom to make decisions against parental wishes, because that's what's happening today. This started with two men, Harry Hay and David Thorstad. Now, I'm sure there were more, but these men were the ringleaders in multiple organizations that started with the legit cause of gay rights. It started out doing good. Along the way, they started advocating for the sexualization of children by declaring that they were the only group fighting for the rights of children to make their own decisions, as long as it, of course, gave them the ability to have sex with those children without going to jail. They declared gender, sexual identity, sexual activity were all able to be defined on a daily basis. LGBT groups, gay and lesbian families, drove NAMBLA out of their ranks. LGBT groups refused to let NAMBLA march in their parades or participate in any of their official events. In the 1990s, LGBT groups and conservative groups stood together in defense of our children. Thorstad and Hay became very much involved in politics and influencing laws, policy, and pushing their radical agenda into the law books for every state. So, did NAMBLA go away after it was exposed? After the height of parental anger and the suspension from all LGBT groups? They did not. As of today, they are still active in dozens of places around the world and in the United States. NAMBLA has a website, NAMBLA.org, and this year they are celebrating their 43rd anniversary. Now let that sink in. They have a website provided by Two Cows Domain and hosted on gtt.net servers out of Atlanta, Georgia. During the last political upheaval in the United States, Parler, which was an app that had hosted on AWS servers, was shut down because of its radical right-wing thinking. However, NAMBLA has a website, and the website has poetry talking about man-boy love, stories, fiction about having sex with children, articles, and a forum. All of this in multiple languages, even artwork. NAMBLA is alive and well, folks, advocating for your children to make their own decisions about chemical castration, puberty blockers, selecting their pronouns of the day, gender identity, sexual activity at very young ages, as well as making sure that those that have sex with these children are not arrested or are released from prison. Now, we've heard the term groomer, and it's pissed people off. Groomer is a term that has upset a great many people in the teaching profession, the educational administrations, and political organizations. Grooming to them means coaching, preparing, and creating a child that you will eventually have sex with. Now, this is not always the case, but they have taken it to a different extreme. We use the term groomer because it is apropos for this situation. It is absolutely true. So let's talk about what groomer is. Grooming is the process by which an individual cultivates a relationship, builds trust, and shows special attention by favoring a child that buys into their gender fluidity lessons. Now, groomers give gifts, attention, affection, praise for following the guidance they are given. They're trying to elicit a prescribed response. We do this when we train our children to clean their room. We show them praise for cleaning their room and doing a good job. It cultivates the desired behavior. This is exactly what is happening in our schools. Grooming does not necessarily have to be negative behavior or threats of violence. We tell children they can trust adults. If they are lost or scared or hurt, they can trust police officers, firefighters, doctors, nurses, and finally, teachers who spend the majority of their day with those children. These groups take their job to protect children very seriously. Sadly, some do not. They use them as an opportunity to push an agenda that harms those children. Now, look, folks, they're skirting the law here. In the U.S., it is a violation of federal law to distribute or expose obscene material to minors. Yes, that includes showing Pornhub to a child. In some states, like Florida, it is a crime to knowingly expose a minor to any obscene images or content. Florida Statute 847.013 states, anyone who exposes a minor to pornographic material can be charged with a sex crime. Other states also charge individuals with an obscenity crime for these infractions and activities. So the question remains, why are our schools allowed to have books in their elementary schools that show sex acts and illustrations and photos like the book Lawn Boy? I will not show the cover of the book nor the illustrations, but you can look them up on the internet. There will be a list of those books on our website that you can guarantee you can look up. They are sold on Amazon and you can find them. Why hasn't a parent charged the local school and the local police with arresting the school administration or the teacher using this as a teaching material to push gender curriculum? Why are the police not arresting and stepping in and enforcing these laws when they know this content is being pushed at our children in direct violation of law? Well, it's simple. Law enforcement's reluctant to act and enforce the law because they are afraid of backlash from LGBT activists, Antifa, any other group out there that would demonize them, call them names, and try to defund them even more than they are being defunded now. That's not a left and right argument. That is fact. The police are scared to do their job for multiple reasons. Historically, LGBT groups made rules for their organizations to protect children from people like the members and founders of NAMBLA. Even though society claimed all LGBT people were child molesters, the LGBT community as a whole excluded NAMBLA, voted against their inclusion in any function, removed them from their affiliates listing. Basically, the LGBT community stood firmly for the protection and support of children to be children. While we called them child molesters, they protected children. It's amazing. The LGBT community cares about children. We say it's because they want to have sex with them, but that's not true. These LGBT groups are about their own rights, but they have been absconded with by things like NAMBLA. They have been corrupted for 43 years by NAMBLA, and that's why they are spouting things that has gotten them off track.